Ghouls, monsters, and cryptic creatures seemingly roam this entire planet, and there's no escaping them. Welcome back to the swamp, my friends. It's good to see you made it back for another episode. Today we're going to be exploring some creepy and downright unexplainable stories sent in by viewers just like you. If you have a story that you would like to share in a future video, whether it's an unexplained story or something else, be sure to submit it at swampdweller.net or the email you can find in the description down below. I'd love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp, and stories like yours to help this show keep going on a daily basis. Joining me today on this video is my good friend Jensen. If you enjoy his voice, please be sure to check out his channel. The link to do so will be in the top of the description. Now, let's get into these creepy and allegedly true, unexplainable supernatural stories. I've never told anyone this story, but I felt now was the time to get the truth out. So I used to live back in Oregon a few years ago. I think I was about 15 when the incident occurred back then. I'm 20 now. I used to live in a townhouse on the edge of the Oregon woods. There was a large tree I used to climb on and mess around with. It was right behind the complex, and there was a small clearing with a small footpath leading into the woods where eventually the road would disappear and you would be left to fend for yourself and try not to get lost. One day I was slightly bored and decided to go on what I like to call an adventure. I did things like this a lot, and honestly I still do. I'm just a lot more cautious now. Well, as I was saying, I was walking along the trail and oddly found a small overgrown pathway leading off of the way that I was walking. Almost as though there was at one time a hiking trail there. I started to walk further ahead before curiosity got the better of me, and I turned around going down that old worn out and overgrown pathway. About 5 steps in, I began to hear some weird noises around me. Thinking it was my own footsteps, I pushed on, which now I regret. As I walked further and further into the woods, I began to hear faint breathing sounds seemingly getting closer with each step that I took down the pathway. Before long, a low groan erupted through the trees, almost the sound of an animal or human dying in pain. The groan erupted a second time, this time merging with a gurgling sound. A few moments later, I heard a loud thump like something heavy hitting the forest floor, soon followed by heavy footsteps and a dragging sound. I booked it from that spot, as back then I never really carried a weapon with me. About a week later, I got curious and went back out there. What I found shocked me. I found drag marks explaining the dragging sound that I had heard before, along with footprints. In the middle of the marks was what appeared to be a knife. Along the blade was a dark substance. This substance also seemed to be mixed in the dirt in spots, which I now think was blood. This was the last time I had ever heard anything like that in those woods, and to this day, I suspect something very awful happened out there. I sometimes even wonder if I came close to witnessing a homicide.
I understand why people are eager to share their experiences now. A good story can fill you with a chill down your spine, leave you with a desire to know more. Few people understand the dangers such an opioid can lead to. This story begins with such a desire to see, to live the story. During my life, I've had more encounters with the unknown than I'd have liked. From time to time, I'd share some of these accounts with friends. One night, shortly after a celebration of our upcoming graduation, 4 friends and I were sharing scary stories. Most were just urban legends and folktales, relatively harmless. At some point in the night, our host decided to share a local legend. He told us about a local playground next to a church in our town. Rumor persists that ghosts can be seen during the witching hour. This caught everyone in a strong desire to see it for themselves. Against my better judgment, I gave in to their fervor. and we decided to head to the playground and try to see the ghost. A few others were playing card games, and I asked them to watch my baby brother, who'd come with me. We made our way out into the night, 5 of us, and made it out on our way. Our host led us through a series of gutters that cut through the suburban sprawl, and directly to the church. The streetlights hummed with a chill in the June air. The telltale signs of rubber on the moist road passed occasionally, and pets sang among us in the backyards. And a beautiful full moon helped light our way against a cloudless sky. After a 7-Eleven pit stop, we reached the church. Nothing much of note happened, and even worse, the mood was crushed due to the church being at the corner of an intersection. Though our desire for a spooky sight was gone, we had a fun time being young and taking in one of our last nights as a youthful freedom. Disappointed, we made our way back down to the gutter system. To get to our host home, we talked about TCGs and other games, losing track of time and at ease when we had heard a coin hit the ground. We all stopped to look around. I had asked if anyone even had change to drop. We'd all spent every penny we had on us at the 7-Eleven, and no one even saw a coin on the ground. A twinge of concern hit me like a needle in the arm. Something was off. I couldn't place my finger on it, but I knew. Before I could even speak up, the group started moving. With each corner we passed, the feeling only grew closer. I felt my heartbeat growing in intensity. The soft chill in the air quickly bit into our bare skin, and we struggled a bit to see the way in front of us. After dropping a short skip to a point where the gutters came to 2 directions and led into a barreled drain behind us, the host stopped walking. He's not a small man, in either height or weight, and I've seen him be braver than most, but he was frozen, stuck in a position that I've seen before. It's fight or flight, a common saying people use to describe a response to danger. What is less known, or maybe even thought of, is freezing. Some lock up and freeze when exposed to dangerous situations. I've seen this reaction. The others asked him why he stopped and tried to move him along. Almost like a trigger, when he was pushed, he just collapsed. The 2 next to me tried to get him onto his feet. A sudden drop to concrete can hurt like hell, yet he was out like a light. The rest of the group behind us then whimpered. Looking back, they were looking down at the end of the gutter, backing up until they all circled around me and the host. I asked what was causing everyone to back us all into the corner, yet they just started to panic. I pushed past them and looked around us. By this point, half of the group looked down to the other end, and the other did the same to the other end. I looked and saw nothing, but the uneasy feeling was making me furious. I demanded they answered me, and they stopped speaking over one another. Finally, one of them asked if I see the black dog. The others said they did on each end, looking both ways. I saw nothing. I felt maybe they were just caught up in the moment. I told them I wasn't going to just wait here and let the host suffer from a possible concussion. I made my way down one gutter. That cut to the left and to the end of a cul-de-sac we came from. I grew frustrated with them begging me to come back and quicken my pace. Halfway there, I saw a blue dot in the middle of the gutter. The closer I got, the more it grew. I slowed to a stop. Entranced by this spot, the chill in the air was gone. All the noise in my group begging me to come back was drowned out, and the anger I felt was drowning in a sense of peace and calm. The blue dot grew in a small blue flame, and that had a center of white. What caught me in a trance was that it didn't grow outward, but seemed to grow inward. After I was totally calm, I looked up, and finally was able to see it. Imagine, if you can, the moving silhouette of a wolf, blacker than even the night around it, pacing around before you. Now picture this incomprehensible sight, and still seeing its eyes and gaping maw even darker. This thing circled back and forth as a predator would before a kill, each and every wrong cut deep into my heart. The entire time we walked down the gutter, I heard no sounds. No cars, animals, the hum of power lines, not even our own footsteps. It's why the sudden ping of a coin hit in the ground caught us unaware. Such a small sound would normally be drowned out. The lights around us were dimmed and seemed to be growing even darker. For the first time, I saw my breath in the freezing air. A sickening sight in mid-June. I looked down for a moment and the small flame was gone. I had to get the group out of this mess, and I made my way back, walking backwards as calm as possible. When I made it to them, I noticed the other pacing shadow on the other's path end. I looked at all my friends and came to the quick idea. I told the group we had to make it to the house. For whatever reason, the excuse I came up with was my baby brother. We have to look out for the little guy. That was enough of a reason for them to finally decide to move. We hauled our unconscious friend as best as we could and rushed down the path leading to our exit. I pushed the group along from behind and saw them running like men possessed. I only caught a glimpse of these living cutouts in reality running down our way. Every sound began to down out. My sight was going black, and the night grew so cold I couldn't even feel anything other than a numbing sensation. Everything crashed back into normality when I hit the ground, out of the gutters. Looking back for a second, the only thing I saw was a passing shadow that drew a gust with it as it left. The sounds, heat, and mundane night came back slowly around us. The host gasped awake and sat up. The group quickly ran back into the house, panting and wiping off any tears while also praying to any gods we had. Since then, I've had more incidences in my life. The only difference now is that the group I was with knows better than to grow addiction to the unknown and the desire to know.
This is probably not the same scope as many of the other stories that I have heard about shadow figures, but I had a strange experience yesterday and wanted to share it with someone. For some quick context, I honestly have no idea if this was paranormal or not, but it sure as hell felt creepy. I get off work at 6 p.m., and it's habitual that I take my dog out for a walk right after I get off. I've been working at home since the pandemic, so it's nice to get out of my office chair and stretch my legs and smell fresh air after I clock out for the day. I live in a well-populated area, so seeing people around me isn't out of the ordinary by any means. Usually, my girlfriend will join me, as she's either worked until 4 or 5 p.m. or just gotten out of her online lectures. This was the case yesterday as well. However, I want to mention that on Sunday I had rolled my ankle and have been wearing a medical brace to keep it stabilized. But it makes me limp slightly, and I've been moving slower than my normal pace. For reference, I'm a pretty fast walker and have long legs, so usually I'm the one passing people as we walk. The walk was normal. It was a beautiful day, and despite the pain in my ankle, it was incredibly enjoyable. There's a spot where we typically turn onto an open field during our walk and where we play fetch with the dog for a little bit, but we have to cross a road first. So as we approached, I turned my head to look left to check for cars, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a person about 4 feet behind us. I don't know if it was a male or a female, but I know they were tall and gaunt. They were wearing what looked like a black top and gray pants. This was just for a split second out of the corner of my eye, so I can't say for sure what the clothes were, just the colors. I didn't think anything of it, other than, man, I must be moving slow to have people catching up to me, and brushed it off. When we turned onto the field, however, I took another look back. Frankly, I was just curious who was following us so closely, and wanted to see who it was, but there was no one there. I looked down the road we crossed, and it was completely empty. I looked across to see if someone had doubled back, but there was no one there at all. I immediately got a strange sense of dread and wanted to go directly home, despite the fact that my dog was bounding around ready to play. There isn't a single doubt in my mind that I saw someone. I don't wear glasses, I have good vision, and my hair was out of my eyes. There was nowhere for anyone to hide, No trees to duck behind or places to obscure oneself. I told my girlfriend about what I saw and she claimed she didn't see anyone, but she hadn't been looking. It was just me that saw it. Even my dog, who is typically very hypersensitive and protective of me, didn't even see anything. Again, probably far more tame than most of the other encounters you've shared, but I felt the need to get it off my chest. It was a creepy experience and made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. This experience takes place in the summer of 2011. We have a large living room with large storm windows, and in the same open space behind them is the kitchen and hallway with 2 bedrooms. I had a friend sleeping over. He was on the couch and I was on an air mattress in the center of the room. We had the goal of staying up until sunrise and had been playing Halo Reach on the living room TV. By all accounts, it had been a good night. Sometime around 3 a.m. we decided to switch to watching TV. My friend said he was feeling tired and wanted to take a nap. It was right around 4 a.m. and he had set his alarm for 4:45. I, on the other hand, was wide awake from the inhuman amount of caffeine I had consumed that night. He fell right asleep. Now, for the first time in years remembering the events of that night, I just noticed my hands are shaking. I feel sick to my stomach and under pressure in a way that is hard for me to describe. It makes me very anxious to think about this, still, 9 years later. I was watching My Name is Earl, the episode where Earl falls for his personal trainer Wendy. I remember the exact moment the camera shows her for the first time in a brown Leonard Skinner t-shirt and the TV screen goes black with a bar that reads, "No signal." It displayed this bar for a moment and then completely turned off. Next, the lamps and our kitchen nightlight went out one by one. Through the storm windows came a dull white light that seemed to illuminate the entire interior of the house. I immediately felt a sense of panic. I ran to our white lamp. I remember vividly looking at the pattern of the fern on the side before rotating the switch. It clicked and would not start. The light was growing brighter and felt as if it was consuming me. I jumped over our coffee table and shook my friend. There was now a consuming droning sound. It was mechanical, but like a giant rush of air, though lower pitch. I screamed at him, shook him, opened his eyes. I pulled him off the couch and onto the floor, begging him to wake up. I picked up his cell phone and pressed the power button, but to no avail. I then ran to the kitchen, with the light growing brighter, and flicked the light switches. I remember the on and off of the switch and the specks of the stray green paint. I ran into my parents' bedroom, screaming, trying to shake them awake. I was completely unable to stir them. The light was now seeping into their bedroom. I sprinted out and down the hallway, and it was almost too bright to see. I found my way to my air mattress and covered my head with the blanket. I felt the light consume me and wrap around me, and then it was like I was just out. It's very similar to anesthesia. It was like skipping a frame in a movie. Suddenly, I was sitting up in my bed on my covers. The mechanical droning quickly faded, and the white light faded away to the yellow morning sunlight coming in from the storm windows. The TV came back on in the same sequence, beginning with the no signal warning. Then the DVR powered back up. The lamps and lights came back on one by one. I heard the microwave beep after regaining power. I picked up my friend's phone. It was 7 a.m. I woke him up and he asked why I did not wake him up when his alarm went off. I had no answer. I cannot explain this experience, although I'm absolutely certain it was not a dream. I have had lucid dreams before and they are nothing like this. It was so vivid, and I can still see it photographically in my memory. I remember the way my friend's eyelids felt when I lifted them, and the way the light switches felt, and exactly how my house was decorated at the time. I also watched as everything came back on. I have never told this story to anyone before. I moved into my new apartment about a week ago. My first few nights were comfortable and uneventful. However, about 3 or 4 nights ago, I was laying in my bed watching TV when I glanced out of my bedroom door and saw a very tall, about 8 foot tall, white being walk from the living room and into our kitchen. I've always seen spirits and weird things. This felt different. I was frozen. I couldn't move. Eventually, I could talk and I asked my boyfriend if he could go up and turn on some lights. We were in bed watching TV before going to sleep, and I felt fine. Nothing else happened that night and I eventually fell asleep. The next night I began to see these dark little blobs dashing around. Usually these are little cat spirits visiting me and I was fine with it, until I realized they weren't cats and they would take on the shape of little people about 3 feet tall. Last night my 2 cats kept staring in the same direction and following things around the room with their eyes. I got a little freaked out and had this heavy feeling in my chest. Eventually, I ignored it and fell into a deep sleep. I woke up to one of my cats being chatty. This is weird because she doesn't usually meow unless something is talking to her. She's typically very quiet. It was like something was playing with her and her toy. I could hear it bouncing around. I felt heaviness on my chest again. It felt like there was static in the air. I looked over into my closet and there was one of these small people that I mentioned earlier. It looked like pure static though. I started to say in my head, "This is my home and you're not allowed in it." And suddenly my cat starts howling, absolutely freaking out. I jump up and go get her and everything seemingly stops. My boyfriend was deep asleep through all of it and didn't experience any of it. I don't know what these things are, but I don't feel like they're spirits. They almost feel like aliens. This is a bit of an update from last night. It was pretty calm for the most part. I closed each door that there was activity in, bathroom and closet, but I did see things moving in the kitchen. I was laying in bed again for a while before going to sleep and ended up claiming my space again. I traced each room with white light and really put my energy into each room. It felt like my place again, like it did the first few days after moving in. I was talking to my boyfriend about it all after I felt safer here, and he mentioned how something acted similar with our cats when we first moved into our last place. They would chase around absolutely nothing and act as though I was playing with them. I didn't remember this until he told me about it, so maybe something is following us. Or maybe something is just trying to help them adjust to their new home. I don't know. I'll keep updating you guys as things happen though. My brother is a mortician at a facility in New York, and one night when I was visiting, he asked if I wanted to go to work with him so I wouldn't be alone in his house. I reluctantly said yes. What's the worst that can happen, right? Boy, was I wrong. To start off with, this place was creepy as hell, dark and smelled funny. He said it was normal and it was probably the smell of the formaldehyde, so I just ignored it. After a little time of chit-chatting and catching up, he told me that he needed to get to work, but that I could stay in the little adjoined office and watch some TV, and so that's exactly what I did for a little bit. The entrance to the morgue had swinging doors and you could hear when someone was coming in or out of them. He came to check on me a few times, so I heard them. After a few hours of being by myself, I started to doze off, when the sudden sound of the doors woke me up. Expecting for my brother to walk in and greet me, there was nothing. Again, I started to fall asleep and, yet again, the loud doors went off. You couldn't tell if someone was coming in or out, but they kept on swinging and didn't stop. Thinking my brother was playing a joke on me, I got up and went to tell him to stop, but to my surprise, there was only a little girl standing there, playing by the doors, pushing them. "Hi," I told her. She looked at me and didn't say a word. One of the things that caught my eye was a pretty blue dress with a pink ribbon that she was wearing. "Your dress is pretty, and the bow makes it stand out." Again, no reply. She looked down
and started to run the opposite way, towards a lonesome hall. I thought the kid belonged to another employee, so I went back to my chair and sat down. A couple of hours later, when my brother's shift was over, he finally woke me up to go back to his place. As we were driving, I started to tell him about the doors and the little girl with the cute blue dress and big pink ribbon. He slammed the brakes. "What the hell? Why did you brake?" "Tessa," he told me with a chilling look on his face. "Last night I did an autopsy on a little girl that drowned. She was wearing a blue dress with a big pink ribbon." My blood ran cold, and I've never been to work with my brother ever again.
Thanks for listening to these creepy and allegedly true and unexplainable stories sent in by viewers just like you. If you enjoyed these stories, please be sure to hit that like button as it helps me out a ton. The more likes this video gets, the more YouTube promotes it in its algorithm. If you're new to the swamp, why not join us? Hit that subscribe button and make sure you turn on notifications to never miss a new video. I upload them almost every single day, and all things natural and supernatural. If you have a story that you would like to share in a future video, whether it's a paranormal story, a cryptid story, or something else, be sure to submit it at swampdweller.net or the email you can find in the description down below. I'd love to share your story with everyone here in the swamp. It's stories like yours that help keep this show going on a daily basis. If you're on the go and you don't have YouTube Premium, you can download and listen to your favorite Swamp Dweller scary stories on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, and just about anywhere else you listen to your favorite podcast online. If you want to support the channel outside of hitting that like button and subscribing, maybe check out our merch store. I've got t-shirts, face masks, hoodies, and just about everything else you could want. Thank you guys, as always, for supporting the swamp the way you do. I know this video is just a little bit shorter than the normal, but unfortunately I've just been strapped on time recently. Hopefully that's not a big deal to any of you guys. I will be back very soon with very long videos on a daily basis though. I'm currently about to move houses, so I've just been trying to get that all squared away. Anyways, thank you guys so much for being so supportive as always. If you could, comment down below letting me know what story today was your favorite. Don't forget to check out my good friend Jensen by subscribing to him. You can find the link to do so in the top of the description. He helped me out a ton today. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys soon with another creepy video.